There are places in Utah where history refuses to give us clear answers. Ancient petroglyphs carved into desert cliffs, mysterious stone towers rising from remote canyons, and ruins aligned with the movements of the sun and stars, as if designed with knowledge far ahead of their time. Tonight we're exploring Utah's most enduring mysteries, evidence that challenges the accepted timeline and suggests a far more complex history than we've been taught. Before we begin, here's a quick note. The visuals in this video aren't necessary to enjoy the stories. They make the journey more dynamic, but you can follow everything through audio alone. So feel free to let this play in the background while you work, relax, or even drift off to sleep to these perplexing mysteries. And if you'd like to support the channel, consider subscribing. Now, let's begin our journey into Utah's most mysterious ancient enigmas. High in the remote canyonlands of central Utah, hidden among sheer sandstone cliffs, sit silent stone chambers that hold an ancient secret. These are the Granaries of Range Creek Canyon, built over 1,000 years ago by the Fremont people. But these aren't ordinary storage spaces. They are time capsules, abandoned while still packed with precious corn, beans, and seeds, perfectly preserved food caches left untouched for centuries. Why would a people carefully construct these storage rooms high on near-inaccessible cliffs, fill them with the very essence of their survival, and then simply walk away? Leaving the harvest behind is perhaps the deepest mystery echoing through these silent canyons. The Fremont culture flourished across much of present-day Utah and parts of neighboring states roughly between 300 and 1,300 years ago. They were a fascinating blend of traditions. Farmers cultivating corn, beans, and squash in the canyon bottoms like their ancestral Puebloan neighbors to the south, yet also skilled hunters and gatherers who created distinctive moccasins and basketry. Range Creek Canyon, remarkably isolated and untouched for centuries, offers an unparalleled snapshot of their life. Here, hundreds of granaries, often called Fort Knox granaries due to their security, pepper the cliffsides. Constructed with meticulous care, they were built using stone masonry, sometimes plastered inside and tucked into natural alcoves or built onto precarious ledges. Reaching them required immense effort and skill, often involving climbing or using ropes. Their locations weren't just hidden, they were deliberately chosen to be defensible. Protecting their vital food stores from rodents was one thing, but the height and inaccessibility suggest a far greater concern: protection from other people. And protect them they did. When archaeologists first documented these granaries in detail, they made a startling discovery. Many were found still sealed. Inside, ancient corn cobs, desiccated but intact beans, and other seeds lay undisturbed, exactly as the Fremont left them centuries ago. It's an archaeologist's dream and a profound historical puzzle rolled into one. This wasn't a case of a granary being forgotten or a small cache overlooked. This was a systematic, canyon-wide abandonment of stored food, the critical surplus meant to carry the community through harsh winters and lean times. Leaving behind such hard-won resources defies basic survival logic. What could have been so urgent, so catastrophic, or so compelling that an entire community chose to leave their lifeblood behind, sealed high on a cliff face? Theories swirl like dust devils through Range Creek, but concrete answers remain elusive. One compelling possibility points to environmental pressures. Tree ring data reveals periods of intense drought striking the region around the time the Fremont disappeared from Range Creek, roughly 700 to 800 years ago. A prolonged drought could have devastated crops, shrunk water sources, and made farming untenable in the canyon. Facing starvation, the Fremont may have been forced to migrate suddenly, abandoning everything, even their granaries, in search of more reliable water and fertile land elsewhere. The food left behind, while precious, might have been insufficient or already compromised by the failing environment. Conflict offers another grim explanation. The careful placement of the granaries screams of a fear of raiders, perhaps escalating warfare with neighboring groups, maybe other Fremont bands or incoming Numic-speaking peoples like the ancestors of the Ute or Paiute, reached a breaking point. A sudden, devastating attack could have scattered the inhabitants, leaving no time or opportunity to retrieve the hidden food. Maybe the granaries themselves became targets, and sealing them was a final act to deny their contents to enemies. The silent cliffs hold no evidence of battle, but the strategic placement speaks volumes about perceived threats. Could it have been something less tangible, yet equally powerful? Some researchers ponder a cultural or religious shift. Perhaps a new belief system emerged, forbidding the use of the stored food or declaring the canyon spiritually tainted. Maybe a powerful shaman or leader commanded an exodus to a promised land. While harder to pin down archaeologically, the complete abandonment of such vital resources alongside dwellings suggests a decision that transcended simple practicality for the entire community. The most haunting aspect is the finality. They sealed the granaries. They didn't just leave, they deliberately closed off these precious stores as if intending to return or perhaps ensuring no one else could easily access them. Yet they never came back. Their dwellings in the canyon bottom were also abandoned. The Fremont culture itself faded from Range Creek and much of its heartland not long after. Where did they go? Did they integrate with other groups? Did drought or conflict ultimately scatter them beyond recovery? The sealed granaries stand as stark, silent monuments to a people who vanished, leaving behind the very sustenance of their lives as an enduring enigma. The corn remains in the dark, the beans lie still, and the cliffs keep their secret, a 1,000-year-old mystery of survival, fear, and the ultimate unexplained abandonment. Why walk away from your future, sealed in stone? Deep within the labyrinthine canyons of southern Utah, particularly concentrated around the Colorado River and its tributaries like Canyonlands and the San Rafael Swell, another profound mystery stares out from the rock walls. These are not forgotten granaries, but silent, towering specters painted and pecked onto the sandstone canvas. This is the Barrier Canyon style, some of the most haunting, enigmatic, and simply otherworldly rock art on the planet. Created not by the Fremont, but by an even more shadowy group of ancient people, these figures defy easy explanation and vanish from the archaeological record over 1,500 years ago, leaving behind no written language, no known settlements, and no clear descendants. Who were these artists? What compelled them to create these mesmerizing, often unsettling images? And why did their unique vision disappear so completely? Imagine standing in a narrow canyon, the light fading. Then you see it, a figure often 7 feet tall or more, painted in deep reds, oranges, or whites. It has a small, simple body, sometimes just a narrow rectangle or a faint outline. But the head is unnerving. Oversized, often trapezoidal or shaped like a broad insect head with large, staring eyes. Sometimes horns or antennae sprout upwards. Arms are often missing or reduced to mere stubs. Legs fade away or are non-existent. These are the typical Barrier Canyon style figures, ethereal, imposing, and profoundly alien. They aren't depicted hunting, farming, or dancing like figures in other rock art traditions. They simply are. They float, they loom, they observe. Surrounding them might be smaller, more recognizable figures, bighorn sheep, birds, snakes, or tiny human-like forms. But the giants dominate, radiating an aura of power and mystery. The artistry is undeniable, using the natural contours of the rock to enhance the figure's presence, creating a sacred gallery untouched by time. Dating this art is notoriously difficult, but the prevailing evidence suggests it was created over a long period, roughly spanning from 4,000 to around 1,500 years ago. This places its peak creation long before the Fremont culture rose to prominence, and its disappearance centuries before the ancestral Puebloans reached their zenith. The artists belong to the archaic period, traditionally viewed as nomadic hunter-gatherers. Yet the scale, complexity, and sheer number of Barrier Canyon panels suggest something more, perhaps seasonal gatherings, specialized shamans, or a deep, shared cultural tradition requiring significant investment of time and communal effort. Who were these archaic people capable of such sophisticated and sustained artistic expression focused on the supernatural? The meaning behind these haunting figures is the core of the enigma. The prevailing theory leans heavily towards the shamanic and spiritual. Many researchers believe these towering figures represent supernatural beings, perhaps ancestors transformed into powerful spirits, deities controlling the forces of nature, or visions encountered during trance states induced by rituals or plant medicines. The smaller animals and human figures might depict the spirit world, rituals performed to connect with these entities, or even the shaman's journey. The locations are often dramatic, deep in canyon alcoves, near water sources, or overlooking vast vistas, places inherently powerful and likely chosen as portals to the spirit realm. The figure's lack of movement and direct, confronting gaze could signify their eternal presence and watchful power over the living world, and the cycles of nature so crucial to survival. But mysteries abound. Why the consistent, specific style across such a vast geographic area and over potentially thousands of years? Was there a central teaching, a shared cosmology so powerful it endured generations? And why the sudden disappearance? Around 1,500 years ago, the creation of new Barrier Canyon style panels seems to cease. Did the people who made them vanish? Were they absorbed or displaced by incoming groups like the Fremont or early Ancestral Puebloans, who brought different artistic traditions and perhaps different beliefs? Did a profound cultural shift render this specific form of spirit representation obsolete or even forbidden? Unlike the Fremont Granaries, there's no clear evidence of environmental collapse or warfare directly linked to the art's end. The absence of associated settlements deepens the mystery. Where did the artists live? No substantial villages or campsites definitively linked to the creators of the Barrier Canyon style have been found nearby. Were they created by highly mobile bands who returned to specific sacred sites generation after generation, leaving only their art behind? The lack of context makes interpreting the art's full social and religious role incredibly challenging. These figures exist in a void, speaking a visual language we can only partially decipher. Standing before a Barrier Canyon panel is an experience unlike any other. The scale is humbling, the imagery deeply evocative, and the silence profound. These are not mere decorations. They are windows into a lost cosmology, a belief system etched in mineral paint and stone by people whose names and stories are utterly lost to time. They created gods or spirits in their own mesmerizing image, a testament to the human need to understand and connect with the unseen forces of the universe. Then they vanished, leaving their silent, watchful sentinels on the canyon walls. Who were they? What urgent message or profound belief did they strive to communicate across the millennia? The haunting giants of Barrier Canyon offer no easy answers, only an enduring, mesmerizing echo of a people swallowed by the desert sands of time. Their art remains, a ghostly whisper from a world we can scarcely imagine. Deep within the winding, dusty expanse of 9 Mile Canyon in eastern Utah, often called the world's longest art gallery, scenes of astonishing scale and complexity unfold across the canyon walls. These aren't simple doodles or lone figures. The Great Hunt panels are monumental petroglyphs, sprawling tableaus depicting vast processions of hunters confronting animals of impossible size. Giant bighorn sheep, elk, and enigmatic, towering figures dwarf the human forms pursuing them. But are we witnessing a literal record of an epic hunt, or is something far more profound, something deeply spiritual, captured in stone over 1,000 years ago? The sheer scale defies simple explanation and hints at a reality the Fremont people perceived, one where the boundaries between the physical and the spiritual world blurred dramatically. Created primarily by the Fremont culture between roughly 1,700 years ago, these panels are masterpieces of ancient American rock art. Imagine panels stretching dozens of feet across, crowded with dozens, sometimes hundreds of figures. Human hunters, often depicted with distinctive trapezoidal bodies and horned headdresses characteristic of Fremont anthropomorphs, wield bows and arrows or spears, but their prey steals the show. Bighorn sheep are rendered larger than the hunters, sometimes massively so. Elk appear with elaborate, sweeping antlers that dominate the composition. Some creatures defy easy identification, fantastical, oversized beasts that seem to emerge from myth. The hunters often appear in dynamic poses, as if running or drawing bows, converging on these colossal animals from multiple directions. The sense of movement, organization, and sheer spectacle is overwhelming. It feels like a snapshot of an event of immense cultural significance, frozen in time on the sandstone canvas. So what does this monumental art truly represent? The literal interpretation, a depiction of an actual massive communal hunt, is compelling but problematic. While communal hunts like bison jumps or antelope drives occurred, the scale shown here, with animals dwarfing humans and hunters converging from vast distances within the panel, seems exaggerated beyond practicality. The presence of fantastical creatures further complicates a purely historical reading. This leads many researchers down the path of the symbolic and the shamanic. Were these panels depicting not a physical hunt, but a spiritual one? Did the giant animals represent powerful animal spirits, masters of the herds, that needed to be appeased or overcome in ritual to ensure hunting success? The act of carving the hunt itself could have been a form of sympathetic magic, an attempt to influence the outcome of real hunts in the spirit world. Perhaps the hunters depicted are not merely men, but shamans or ritual participants, engaged in a ceremonial reenactment or a visionary journey. The oversized prey might symbolize the immense spiritual power sought or confronted during these rituals. Another theory suggests the panels commemorate a foundational myth, a story central to Fremont identity, perhaps telling of a time when legendary hunters subdued primordial beasts or received the gift of game animals from the spirit world. The repetition of similar scenes across 9 Mile Canyon could indicate these were important pilgrimage or ceremonial sites, where communities gathered to reaffirm their connection to these stories and the life-sustaining power of the hunt. The location itself, within a major travel corridor rich in game, adds weight to its sacred significance. Why invest such immense effort into these sprawling, complex scenes high on canyon walls if they weren't central to the people's understanding of their world and their place within it? The Great Hunt panels remain a breathtaking enigma. Were they a record of survival, a map of the spirit world, or a prayer etched in stone? The giant animals stare silently from the cliffs, guarding the true meaning of the Fremont's most spectacular hunt. A hunt that might have been waged not for meat, but for the very soul of their existence. Across the rugged landscapes of Utah and surrounding regions, the Fremont people thrived for centuries. They built sturdy pit houses and above-ground granaries, farmed corn, beans, and squash in challenging environments, crafted distinctive moccasins and basketry, and left behind a rich legacy of rock art. Then, roughly around 700 to 600 years ago, their distinct cultural signature vanished. Villages were abandoned, fields lay fallow, the intricate pottery style ceased. Unlike the later, more famous disappearance of the ancestral Puebloans from places like Mesa Verde, the Fremont fade is quieter but no less profound. Why did an entire, adaptable culture, seemingly well-established across a vast territory, simply cease to exist as a distinct people centuries before European contact? The silence left behind is a haunting archaeological puzzle. Evidence of their departure is etched in the landscape. Sites like Range Creek Canyon show granaries sealed and full, pit houses left with tools and belongings sometimes still inside, as if people intended a temporary move but never returned. Across their range, from the Great Basin to the Colorado Plateau, the distinctive Fremont artifacts, the unique figurines, the trapezoidal-bodied rock art figures, the one-rod-and-bundle basketry, stop appearing in the archaeological layers dating after around 1300 AD. It wasn't a sudden, single-event extinction. The process likely unfolded over decades or even a century or two, but the end result was the same. The Fremont way of life, as archaeologists define it, was gone. So, what forces conspired to erase this culture? Climate change stands as a prime suspect. Tree ring data reveals a period known as the Great Drought, gripping the American Southwest roughly between 1270 and 1299 AD. This wasn't just a dry spell. It was a devastating, decades-long period of significantly reduced rainfall. For the Fremont, who relied on a delicate balance of farming and foraging, this drought could have been catastrophic. Springs dried up, streams dwindled, crops failed consistently year after year. The painstakingly stored surpluses in cliffside granaries, like those in Range Creek, might have been depleted or proven insufficient. Faced with starvation and dwindling resources, communities may have fractured, abandoning their traditional territories in a desperate search for water and food, scattering into smaller, mobile groups. This environmental pressure could have been the primary engine of their dispersal. Conflict and social upheaval likely played a role too. As resources became scarce due to drought, competition would have intensified. Pressure from neighboring groups, particularly Numic-speaking ancestors of the Ute, Paiute, and Shoshone peoples migrating into the region during this period, could have led to warfare, raiding, and displacement. The defensible locations of Fremont granaries and some villages hint at a growing need for security. Social structures reliant on surplus agriculture and settled life might have collapsed under the strain of environmental and social stress, leading to a breakdown in tradition and identity. Did the Fremont lose wars? Were they absorbed through intermarriage or forced assimilation into incoming groups? Did their distinct cultural practices simply erode as survival became the only priority? The most likely answer is a complex interplay of factors. The Great Drought was the probable catalyst, shattering their agricultural foundation and straining resources. This vulnerability may have exposed them to increased conflict and pressure from incoming populations. Facing environmental collapse and social disruption, the Fremont people likely didn't vanish in a puff of smoke, but rather dispersed. Some groups may have been absorbed by incoming Numic peoples, contributing to the cultural tapestry of tribes like the Utes and Paiutes. Others might have migrated south, possibly integrating with ancestral Puebloan groups, though evidence for this is less direct. Their distinct identity dissolved as they adapted to new circumstances, new groups, and potentially a return to a more nomadic lifestyle. The Fremont disappearance isn't a story of extinction, but of transformation and diaspora under immense pressure. The mystery lies in the details of that transformation and the final fading of a unique cultural light that once burned brightly across the Utah wilderness. Why did their distinct identity not survive the journey? In the stark, arid lands near the Green River in eastern Utah, a rancher named Clarence Pilling made an astonishing discovery in the 1940s. Buried in a shallow cave, protected by dry desert air, were 11 small clay figures unlike anything previously found in the region. These weren't crude lumps of clay. The Pilling figurines are intricate, detailed sculptures depicting humans and animals, standing only 2 to 5 inches tall but radiating an extraordinary presence. Their craftsmanship is exquisite, carefully modeled heads with distinct facial features, detailed hairstyles or headdresses, intricate body paint or clothing patterns, and postures full of life. But the true shock came with dating. These sophisticated artifacts were created not by the well-known Fremont, but by people belonging to the Archaic period, potentially as far back as 5,000 to 7,000 years ago. How did such advanced artistic expression appear millennia before the rise of known pottery-making cultures in the area? These tiny figures represent a giant leap backward in time and a profound technological enigma. The figurines themselves are mesmerizing. The human figures possess remarkable individuality. Some have elaborate coiffures or headgear. Others display intricate patterns painted or incised on their bodies, possibly representing tattoos, body paint, or clothing. Facial features are carefully rendered. Animal figures, including birds and possibly a bison, are equally naturalistic and detailed. The level of artistry suggests not just skill, but a deep tradition and understanding of form. Crucially, they are made of unfired clay. They were never placed in a kiln. They were simply sun-dried or lightly baked, a technique that makes their survival for millennia in a shallow cave even more remarkable. Had they been fired, they would be classified as pottery, pushing back the known date of pottery in the eastern Great Basin by thousands of years. Their unfired state places them firmly in the Archaic period, a time traditionally associated with nomadic hunter-gatherers using stone and bone tools, not sophisticated clay modeling. This dating is the core of the mystery. The Archaic period in the Great Basin, spanning from roughly 8,000 to 2,000 years ago, is not known for figurative art of this complexity or preservation. Known artifacts are primarily stone tools, baskets, which rarely survive, and simple cordage. The pilling figurines shatter this image. They imply that archaic peoples in this region possess the following traits. Number 1. Advanced knowledge of materials. Understanding clay's properties, including sourcing, preparation, and modeling techniques far beyond simple daubing. Number 2. Sophisticated artistic tradition. Demonstrating not just technical skill but a cultural value placed on detailed representation, possibly for ritual or symbolic purposes. The detail suggests these weren't toys, but objects of significance. Number 3. Surprising permanence and tension. Despite being unfired, their creation and careful placement in a protected cave suggest a desire for these objects to last, to be seen or used repeatedly, contradicting the notion of purely transient archaic cultures. Who were these artists? Were they part of a localized, highly innovative group whose other traces have vanished? Do they represent a wider, but previously unrecognized, artistic capability among archaic peoples that simply hasn't survived elsewhere due to the perishable nature of unfired clay? Were these figures part of shamanic rituals, or perhaps representations of spirits, ancestors, or powers invoked for hunting success or fertility? Their discovery in a cave, often seen as a portal to the underworld or spirit realm in many cultures, supports a ritual interpretation. The pilling figurines stand as tiny, defiant anomalies. They whisper of lost chapters in human history, of unexpected artistic flourishing in an era we thought we understood. How widespread was this knowledge? And why, after creating such masterpieces, does this specific tradition seem to disappear from the archaeological record for thousands of years, only for pottery to emerge much later? These delicate figures hold the weight of a massive, unanswered question about the true capabilities of ancient desert dwellers. In the high desert paradise of Cedar Mesa in southeastern Utah, water is life. It's a scarce, precious commodity, especially for the ancestral Puebloan farmers who thrived here centuries ago. Yet, across this rugged landscape, evidence emerges of an astonishing mastery over this vital resource, a mastery that seems to defy the harsh environment and then vanishes along with the people who wielded it. Ancient engineers constructed intricate systems to capture, channel, and store every precious drop. Check dams spanning gullies, complex grids of canals spreading across canyon bottoms, and carefully lined reservoirs tucked into alcoves. But perhaps most intriguing are the reports and scant clues hinting at something even more sophisticated: springs that once flowed reliably but are now dry, seeps that seem to have vanished, suggesting the ancients didn't just manage water. They may have actively enhanced or even created water sources in ways we don't fully grasp. How did they achieve such hydrological feats in this arid land? And why did this knowledge seemingly disappear with them? The visible water management is impressive enough. Ancestral Puebloans, ancestors of modern Pueblo peoples, built extensive networks, particularly during the Pueblo II and III periods, roughly 900 to 700 years ago. They constructed low stone check dams across seasonal drainages, arroyos. These weren't designed to create large lakes. Instead, they slowed down the violent rush of storm runoff, allowing water to soak into the ground, replenishing the water table and creating areas of moist soil perfect for etched farming, planting in areas where floodwater would naturally spread. They built intricate grids of small canals to direct this precious runoff water directly onto fields. They excavated and lined reservoirs in natural bedrock depressions or alcoves with clay, often imported, to capture and hold rainwater and snowmelt, sometimes using clever siphon systems to move water between levels. The scale and precision of these systems, built with stone tools and baskets for hauling material, speak to generations of accumulated knowledge about the land, weather patterns, and the movement of water. But then there are the whispers of the disappearing water. Old reports from early settlers, ranchers, and even some archaeologists sometimes mention springs noted by the ancients that no longer flow or seeps that have significantly diminished. While natural climate shifts, like the Great Drought, certainly caused some drying, some anomalies persist. Did the ancestral Puebloans possess techniques to improve spring flow? Theories abound, though concrete evidence is elusive. Could they have subtly altered groundwater pathways by strategically placing rock piles or digging infiltration basins uphill to increase recharge? Did they practice sophisticated water harvesting on a massive scale, using networks of small dams and spreaders over vast areas to maximize groundwater recharge, effectively creating or bolstering springs downstream over time? Some suggest they understood the connection between vegetation cover and water retention, perhaps managing plants near springs to reduce transpiration loss. The placement of their structures often reveals an uncanny understanding of subsurface water movement, hinting at knowledge passed down through centuries of observation. The ultimate mystery is the loss of this knowledge. When the ancestral Puebloans migrated away from Cedar Mesa around 700 years ago, likely due to the combined pressures of drought and social factors, their sophisticated water management systems were abandoned. The check dams silted up, the canals filled with debris, the reservoirs dried. The subtle techniques potentially used to enhance springs were forgotten. Modern hydrologists struggle to fully replicate the sustainability of some ancient systems using contemporary technology. Did their departure coincide with environmental changes that made their methods less effective? Or did the deep, place-based understanding of Cedar Mesa's specific hydrology, knowledge earned over centuries, simply evaporate when the communities dispersed? The silent, crumbling stone dams and empty reservoirs stand as monuments to a lost hydrological wisdom. How did they coax life from the desert stone so effectively? And what subtle secrets of water did they take with them when they walked away, leaving only dry channels and the ghost of flowing water in the canyons? The desert guards its water, and the ancients' deepest tricks for finding it closely. Nestled amidst the red rock formations and ghost town remnants of Silver Reef, Utah, a former silver mining boomtown, lies a discovery that shouldn't exist. In 1993, a local resident named Ray Gardner was digging in his backyard garden when his shovel struck something small and metallic. Brushing off the desert soil, he found himself holding an ancient coin. Not a Spanish reel from later explorers, not a modern American penny, but a small, bronze coin clearly depicting a profile bust in Greek writing. Experts identified it as a genuine Greek bronze coin, specifically a dram from the city of Rhodes, minted sometime between 200 BC and 100 BC. How did a coin from ancient Greece, centuries older than the Roman Empire, end up buried in the soil of southern Utah, thousands of miles and millennia away from its origin, long before Christopher Columbus sailed? This tiny artifact ignited a firestorm of controversy and speculation, challenging conventional narratives of New World contact. The coin itself is authentic. Numismatists, coin experts, confirmed it was a genuine Rhodian dram. Rhodes was a powerful maritime state in the Aegean Sea during the Hellenistic period. The coin depicts the head of Helios, the sun god, on one side, and a rose, the symbol of roads, Rhodon meaning rose in Greek, on the other. It circulated primarily in the eastern Mediterranean around 2,000 years ago. Finding such a coin in Utah is akin to finding a Roman sandal on the moon, according to established history. The accepted timeline holds no record of Old World civilizations reaching the interior of North America before Columbus in 1492, and certainly not Greeks over 2,000 years ago. So, how did it get there? The explanations range from the mundane to the wildly speculative. The most accepted theory by mainstream archaeologists is that the coin was simply lost in modern times. Silver Reef was a bustling mining town in the late 19th century, attracting people from all over the world. A collector, traveler, or immigrant could have brought this ancient coin as a curiosity or keepsake and dropped it. Gardner found it relatively shallowly buried in disturbed soil near his house, consistent with recent loss. Skeptics also suggest the coin could have been planted as a hoax, either as a prank or an attempt to create a sensation. However, Gardner had no history of such behavior and reported the find openly. The coin showed genuine wear and patina consistent with age. Then there's the controversial theory that captures imaginations: pre-Columbian transoceanic contact. Proponents argue the coin is evidence that ancient Greek, Phoenician, or Roman sailors somehow crossed the Atlantic, traveled up the Gulf of Mexico and major river systems, and eventually reached the American Southwest centuries before Columbus. While intriguing, there is no corroborating archaeological evidence anywhere: no shipwrecks, no settlements, no other artifacts. The journey seems logistically implausible for ancient Mediterranean vessels. The Silver Reef coin remains an isolated anomaly. No other similar coins have been found in credible contexts in North America. While its authenticity as an ancient object isn't disputed, its journey to Utah is deeply contested. Did it fall from the pocket of a homesick Greek immigrant in the 1880s? Or does it represent a sliver of evidence for a forgotten voyage? A story so fleeting it left only a single, silent coin buried in the red dirt. The Rhodian dram whispers of impossible journeys, challenging our maps of history. Was it merely a modern accident, or a ghost from an ancient mariner's pocket, lost in a land he never should have seen? The desert offers no easy answers, only the enduring puzzle of a coin far, far from home. The Great Salt Lake sprawls across northwestern Utah, a vast, shimmering expanse of hypersaline water, North America's largest salt lake. Its shores shift dramatically with rainfall and drought, but one thing remains surprisingly consistent: a profound lack of substantial ancient archaeological sites directly on its prehistoric shorelines. This absence is deeply puzzling. Lakes are natural magnets for human habitation throughout history, providing water, fish, waterfowl, and transportation corridors. Ancient peoples thrived around Utah Lake to the south and left abundant evidence along smaller lakes and rivers. Yet, the shores of the mighty Great Salt Lake seem eerily quiet in the archaeological record. Why would ancient peoples, including the Fremont and earlier archaic groups, seemingly avoid settling along the shores of this immense, resource-rich body of water? The silence speaks volumes, hinting at environmental challenges we might underestimate. The lake's extreme salinity is the most obvious deterrent. While the freshwater bays fed by rivers like the Bear, Weber, and Jordan, especially near their deltas, show some evidence of use, primarily temporary camps for waterfowl hunting, fishing in fresher areas, and salt gathering, the vast majority of the shoreline lacks permanent villages, pit houses, granaries, or extensive middens, trash piles, common near other ancient water sources. The salt content makes the water undrinkable for humans without desalination technology they didn't possess. It also severely limits the edible aquatic life. While brine shrimp and brine flies thrive in the lake and attract massive flocks of birds, they weren't a reliable staple food for humans compared to freshwater fish or large game. The salt crusts and mudflats along the shifting shores would have been challenging and potentially dangerous terrain for travel and settlement. Beyond the salinity, the lake presents unique environmental hurdles. Its water level has fluctuated wildly over the millennia due to climate change, sometimes shrinking dramatically, like today, or expanding to cover much more land. Building permanent settlements on such unstable, potentially saline-encrusted ground would have been risky. A village built during a low-water period could be inundated or surrounded by undrinkable, unusable water as levels rose. The lake is also prone to sudden, fierce storms, creating treacherous conditions for any small watercraft. The resources it did offer, primarily waterfowl during migrations, salt, and possibly some wetland plants in fresher marshes, were likely seasonal. They supported temporary resource extraction, not year-round settlement requiring reliable fresh water and diverse food sources. Essentially, the costs and risks of living directly on the hypersaline shores likely outweighed the benefits for groups who could find more reliable freshwater sources nearby, like along the rivers feeding the lake or around Utah Lake. However, the missing sites aren't entirely absent. Evidence does exist of ancient peoples utilizing the lake's resources, just not establishing permanent homes on its shores in large numbers. Campsites focused on hunting birds and gathering salt are found, particularly around the freshwater inlets. Traces of trails lead towards the lake, suggesting it was part of their seasonal round. The salt itself was a valuable trade commodity, evidenced by its presence in archaeological sites far from the lake. The Fremont and their predecessors clearly knew the lake and exploited its unique offerings, but they chose to live at a safer distance. The Great Salt Lake, for all its immensity, remained a place to visit, to harvest, but not a place to call home. Its shores whisper not of absence, but of careful, practical avoidance. Why build your house on the edge of an inland sea you cannot drink? The ancient people understood the lake's harsh reality, leaving its vast, shimmering silence largely undisturbed, a monument to environmental limits respected for millennia. The mystery lies not in their presence, but in their deliberate, widespread absence from its shifting shores. The rugged beauty of southern Utah near the town of Kanab became the unlikely setting for a discovery that ignited fierce debate. A small bronze coin, identified as originating from the Roman Empire, reportedly found in the early 20th century, though details are frustratingly vague. This coin, if authentic and in situ, undisturbed in its original location, would be revolutionary. Minted during the reign of Constantine the Great, around 300 AD, it depicts the emperor and the Roman sun god Sol Invictus. How could a coin from the twilight of the Roman Empire find its way into the remote canyons of Utah centuries before Columbus? The Zion, Roman coin tantalizes with the possibility of impossible journeys, but its story is shrouded in doubt and controversy. The coin itself is genuine. Experts agree it is an authentic Roman phallus from the early 4th century AD. The problem lies entirely with its provenance, its history of ownership, and, crucially, the circumstances of its discovery. Unlike the Silver Reef coin found recently in a documented location, the details surrounding the Zion coin's finding are murky. It reportedly surfaced in the possession of a man named Arnold H. Stanford in the 1920s or 30s, who claimed it was found near Kanab. However, there's no reliable documentation of where exactly it was found, by whom, or how deep it was buried. Was it found on the surface, in a cave, in disturbed soil near a modern settlement? Without this context, it's impossible to rule out modern introduction. Skeptics, including most professional archaeologists, point to several likely scenarios. The most plausible is modern loss or a hoax. Kanab was settled by Mormon pioneers in the 1860s, attracting people from diverse backgrounds. A settler, traveler, or collector could easily have brought this coin as a curiosity and lost it. A hoax to promote tourism is also plausible given the lack of verifiable discovery details. Another possibility is misidentification or misplacement. Could the coin have been found elsewhere, even in Europe, with the Utah discovery story fabricated later? The most significant argument against pre-Columbian contact remains the utter lack of corroborating evidence. A single coin is an anomaly. Where are the other artifacts? Where is the evidence of Roman presence, campsites, tools, or cultural impact? Roman contact would have been a monumental event unlikely to leave only a single, unprovenanced coin. No credible evidence supports transatlantic Roman expeditions reaching North America, let alone penetrating inland to Utah. Proponents argue its mere existence demands explanation. They suggest lost Roman ships, indirect trade networks spanning continents, or even suppressed evidence, though none are substantiated. Dr. Romy P. Epstein, a researcher who studied the coin in the 1970s, believed it was genuine and found locally but couldn't resolve the provenance issue. The coin currently resides in a private collection, making independent study difficult. The Zion, Roman coin remains a captivating enigma wrapped in layers of uncertainty. Is it a ghost from an impossible Roman voyage, a whisper of forgotten global connections? Or is it merely a modern artifact dropped by a tourist or a settler enchanted by the Red Rock country, its true origin story lost to time and poor record-keeping? Without concrete proof of its ancient arrival, the coin stands as a provocative "what if?", a mystery fueled more by the romance of the impossible than by verifiable fact. The canyons keep their secret, if there ever was one. Carved into the dark, volcanic rock faces of Parowan Gap in southwestern Utah is a dense concentration of ancient petroglyphs. Among spirals, animals, and human figures, one feature stands out with uncanny precision: a prominent notch in the gap's western wall. Every year, as the sun sets during the summer and winter solstices, beams of light pierce through this notch, projecting a distinct dagger of sunlight onto specific petroglyphs on the opposite cliff face. For the winter solstice, the light aligns perfectly with a large spiral. For the summer solstice, it strikes a different, significant petroglyph. This deliberate, predictable alignment is undeniable evidence that the gap's ancient inhabitants were sophisticated observers of the sun's cycles. But does the story end with solar calendars? Or do the intricate petroglyphs scattered across the panels hint at something even more complex? Perhaps an ancient star map charting the heavens themselves. The solar alignments are well documented and awe-inspiring. The Fremont culture, and possibly earlier archaic peoples, who created much of the rock art here, clearly understood the solstices, the longest and shortest days of the year. Marking these events was crucial for agricultural societies, like the later Fremont, to track seasons for planting and harvesting. It held deep ceremonial significance for hunter-gatherers as well, marking the turning points of the year, the changing power of the sun, and times for important rituals. The precision of the Parowan Gap alignments demonstrates careful observation over generations. They likely used this natural observatory to calibrate their calendars, predict seasonal changes, and anchor their ceremonies to the cosmic rhythm. The petroglyphs marked by the light might represent the sun, the season, or specific deities associated with these pivotal times. The debate ignites over the other petroglyphs. Proponents of the star map theory, like researcher Vondel Chamberlain, argue that the entire panel is a complex astronomical record. They suggest clusters of dots represent specific star constellations, like the Pleiades or Orion. Zigzag lines depict the Milky Way, and various animal figures symbolize constellations in ways similar to other global traditions, e.g., a bighorn sheep representing a specific star group. The theory proposes that the ancients used the gap not just for solstice observations, but also to chart the movements of stars and planets over longer cycles, perhaps even tracking events like lunar standstills or the precession of the equinoxes over centuries. The proximity of the solstice markers to these other symbols fuels this interpretation. Could it be a unified cosmic map? Mainstream archaeologists and many astronomers urge caution. They acknowledge the solstice alignments as remarkable feats of practical astronomy, but highlight key challenges. Identifying constellations in abstract petroglyphs is highly subjective. A cluster of dots could represent stars, seeds, people, or abstract art. Without cultural context, definitive identification is impossible. Proposed alignments often don't hold consistently over centuries due to gradual shifts in star positions precession. A functional map would need constant updating. There's also risk of overinterpretation, imposing modern astronomy onto ancient symbols. The creators likely had a rich cosmology intertwining sky, earth, and spirit world, but it may not have been a literal map. The symbols probably held multiple layers of meaning beyond strict charting. Parowan Gap remains a powerful testament to ancient skywatchers. The solstice alignments are a concrete, breathtaking achievement. Whether the other petroglyphs form a detailed celestial map or represent a more generalized cosmic understanding intertwined with myth and ritual is the heart of the debate. Were the Fremont and archaic peoples meticulous astronomers charting the heavens on stone? Or were they deeply connected observers who wove the movements of the sun and stars into a rich tapestry of belief, using the gap's unique features to mark time and connect with the cosmos in ways both practical and profoundly spiritual? The silent petroglyphs, bathed in the solstice light, offer no definitive answers, only an enduring invitation to wonder at the depth of ancient knowledge and the mysteries they etched in stone beneath the vast Utah sky. Utah's past is filled with mysteries, some carved into desert stone, some hidden within remote canyons, and others still waiting to be uncovered beneath the sands of time. The stories we've explored today are only a glimpse into the strange, the unexplained, and the forgotten history that continues to puzzle researchers and spark endless debate. But the deeper we search, the more questions we uncover.